Thanks for tuning in, everyone, to another episode of Let's Talk, where I meet with interesting people from different walks of life and we talk about their paths to success, their hobbies, and just other things they like. Before we get started, hit that subscribe button, click that bell so you get notified whenever all these new videos come out, because that's the thing we do on YouTube. I'm so excited to have with me today Susan diRende. Has I said your name? Okay. Why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, kind of tell everyone who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff.
So, my name is Susan diRende. How shall I put it? I've done a lot of things, so it's very hard for me to settle on one thing. I've kind of had a life that's kind of been all over the arts. I've also worked in business and things like that, but only to pay the bills. Same thing for teaching. I taught a lot, many years, but that was to pay the bills so I could really do what I was born to do, which is just make things of interest to me. So I'm a writer primarily. I would say that now. There was a period in my life when I was primarily a performer. There was a period where I was primarily a filmmaker. And there was a period where I was primarily unemployed. So I'm doing temp jobs. So, I mean, it depends. But even when I was doing temp jobs, I was painting and sculpting and performing in theater and only unpaid, and managed to sort of carve this life out of me. I mean, now I'm on the retired end of the thing, though I don't look it, obviously. And I have managed a life where now I'm pretty much free. I write all the time, or paint, or do some other creative project that catches my fancy. My current before I get to current, recently I've had some books published, both in the fiction and nonfiction realm. In the fiction realm, it's been speculative fiction. So you can put up a picture or I can show you a book. Mm-hmm. This book, Unpronounceable, won the award, Philip K. Dick Award, Special Citation for Excellence 2017. So that was great.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was published by a very small press, and I thought, okay, well, that's it. And nice to have it happen and nice to have it in the world. On to the next one. It was a shock when I got word. I was in New Zealand. I was on an artist residency during my vagabond life, which is getting there. So I wrote this book. I published the book. I've had a couple books about learning and going to college in America because I taught English in college, ESL. So those books have, though, been published outside the United States. I've done some work for hire. And then in 2015, I just took off.
You just took off? Just quit?
I sold everything and took off. I closed my house. The dog I'd had at the time had died. I said, okay, I'm just going to travel. So I had, yes, well, it was, it happens with dogs. I've got another one now.
It's just always tough. It's so tough.
It was shocking because she was young enough, but in that story was a gift that is unimaginable because I thought something had happened to her that I had not seen, that she was bitten by a recluse spider. We had them around, that I hadn't seen it. She died suddenly in my neglect. And it turned out that no, she'd been dying of a heart congenital problem. And so all my guilt between the time she died and finding out, I had said, oh, I never took her to the beach like she liked. I would only play with her for a few minutes when she would come to get me from my desk. Turned out if I had played with her longer, I would have killed her. In other words, the gift was take what you get. Love her. Don't rewrite what you did wrong, what you did right. It was a really great thing to realize that by being only available to play with her in small periods of time, I might have extended her life. You know, you can't know that. So I stopped beating myself up as I had done for all the mistakes I made. So she gave me a gift about not looking back and seeing how you might have done the wrong thing. Feel bad for something you learned you did wrong in the moment, but don't take your grief and turn it into if I'd only things that really don't change anything. Anyway, that was the gift of that dog. Yeah. So I took off. I went to New Zealand because I was sad. And New Zealand was as far away as I could get from Los Angeles.
So I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you just sold everything, bought a ticket and went?
Yeah, but I had to get a round trip ticket or they let you in. But yeah, I found an artist residency there.
Okay.
So I did go there. I had a purpose. I didn't have the year planned, but I was going to take a year and just get some renewal going on.
This was 2015?
I was depressed about my life in Los Angeles because I wasn't making any headway in the film business. I had this book I'd written. I couldn't find a publisher. I couldn't get it, I had this dog had died. My house was becoming an Airbnb. I was about to turn an age that I should have been like feeling my success. And I just said, I was turning 60. It was the year I turned 60.
You don't look 60. You don't.
Yeah, well, it's not 2015 too, so thank you.
Hey.
But actually, I do look 60.
No.
I do. This is really what 60 looks like.
No, you have this. You have this persona of just life and energy and.
Well, because I've.
But it makes you look young. That's what I'm saying. Like it makes you look and feel young.
Weird idea of young. It isn't young. It's alive.
Yes.
And young people who are not alive. And so I was like 10. I remember thinking, I don't want to be one of those old people that's like in.
Yeah. Yes.
Many times in my life has been in. I'm comfortable. It's safe. I'm hoping I'm making incremental steps. And maybe because of my wish, I got a kick in the pants and I got to go. It isn't age. I guarantee you it isn't age. It has nothing to do with it. Age, yeah. So I have Italian skin, so it's thick. I don't wrinkle as much as a lot of 80s. But if you're smiling, that's not the thing. 60 is 60. So anyway, I was 60.
Sure.
My life didn't have the success I wanted. I must not be any good. I was telling myself I was painting. I had sold a couple. Couldn't get. It was all bad stuff in my head.
So you went to New Zealand.
Well, I left. I didn't have a home to come home to. And the universe conspired to help me, But anyway, that's another story. So I walked away from my beautiful little guest house in Los Angeles, got on a plane, and went someplace I'd never been before looking for something I didn't know what I was going to find.
Whew. Whew.
Alone.
Whew.
You can't take dogs to New Zealand.
You can't take them in.
Artist residency in the middle of the North Island. It's hills and sheep and cows and a farm. And hills and sheep and cows and a farm. And other artists and a very busy road, so it wasn't even peaceful. I walked and slowly I just let, I learned things. I made friends with the grass. I didn't know I liked grass. I didn't know I liked cows. I could show you. Oh, gee, I don't have any of that artwork to show you. Yes, I do. I'm gonna pull it up on an iPad and you're gonna see it. So and what happened on the road is a friend as I was leaving LA had been sent all of these little blanks of credit cards. They're this big. And he said, "Can you use these?" And I said, "Sure, I will use them to make my travel journal."
Yeah.
He said, "They're plastic." I said, "Sharpies." So I started a travel journal. I made one every day. And the reason I'm bringing this up at all is that this is what enabled me to do as a writer what I'm doing now. Because I didn't care about being an artist. I was an artist because it's fun. Because it takes me to another place. You can tell I'm a very small dog that yaps a lot. A lot of cortisol. Art is another place. But I discovered doing these little tiny paintings. So here is the cows. Can you see it?
I can.
But the thing is that's not the size. Well, that's the flax. But the size. Let me see if I can find.
Are these on your Instagram?
Way
down there.
Facebook.
Anyone watching, check out the Instagram. You can find them.
But the thing is that you're looking them on my phone. Here's one. I did another one, Year of the Dog. That's how big they are. See my hand? So those cows were that small.
Wow.
Right? I did another Year of the Dog. These dogs are that small.
Wow.
Okay?
Whoa. Wow. So they're this big.
Yeah. They're little.
Tiny.
They're the size. They fit in your wallet.
How difficult is that to paint that size with the detail that you did?
It's just what I did. Difficult isn't the point. I could do it
Sure.
every day. The trick was, it's sometimes like one time we'd stayed up late because the father of the people who ran the center had a telescope and Jupiter was out. So we looked in Jupiter and then I thought, shit, what am I going to do tonight? It's after midnight. I couldn't go to bed till I did one of these cards. I did one a day. And so I just did black and then I I did Jupiter. The point is I did one a day. It didn't matter if it was good or not. I did it and I felt so like I was in alignment with my life. All my life I've been an artist, and all my life I've beaten myself up because I wasn't doing this or I wasn't doing that. I have lists that I could cover the walls of this apartment with the things I'm supposed to do. It wasn't until this year when I'm doing the 1,000 words a day for a year, after having done the two about art, the year of the dog and the year of travel, my vagabond year, that I was able to see that the list could go away. But that's another story. That's later. Point is, I did one thing a day for 366 days. I went back across the date line. I got the day back.
Time travel.
I was over there on New Year's Day. When I came back, I got Tuesday twice. And I wrote a memoir about that. I haven't been able to get it published, but with the art. But that's okay. I've got it.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day. It's got to be a thrilling story. It's got to be amazing. It's
called A Year in Miniature. And I put all 7 from each week on one side, and then I have a small essay. It's a serial. It talks you through the year, but what I went through. So that's A Year in Miniature, and I'm still looking for somebody to publish it. I wrote it. I paid someone to help me with shaping and editing it.
Sure.
But platform. Do I spend time on my platform, or do I write my 1,000 words a day? What do I care about?
Right.
It's tough. America tells you, everybody in the arts in America knows, or not everybody, but a lot of them know what you should do, that you have to be in it for the business or you're not as serious, or you're in it for just some sort of ego reason. And that's bullshit. That's such fucking bullshit. Excuse my French.
It's okay.
Want me to say it in French?
Sure. So.
C'est chiant, quoi. Ça me fait chier. That makes me want to shit. Okay, that's French.
So you come back.
So I spent a year traveling and writing this memoir, and I did something every day. And I discovered I didn't want to stop. So I've been traveling ever since. I don't have a house.
You just stay with people?
Huh?
You just stay with people?
This apartment of a friend, I came here because he needed someone to look after his dog, and then I came back this year because he was thinking maybe he would move, and I would help him move, but he isn't back. He's still overseas looking after his mother, so he's keeping the apartment, so I'm just living here. I stay with my sister and house sit. I have another sister that I stay with. I go to friends. I rent places. I rented this wonderful place, Airbnb. If you stay a month or longer, often will give you a discount, big discount, 30 to 50%. So wow. I would go for a month. I stayed a month in the south of France for $400.
$400 for the whole month?
Yeah, for the apartment. Little tiny studio, 3rd, 4th floor walk up, in a little beach town in the south of France called Bailleul-les-Bains. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was a $900 a month place. It was their first listing, so it's 15% off, and then it was cut in half because it was a month. So I paid $400.
Wow.
You can find those, and I didn't care where I went. I'm free. I just have 2 suitcases and a purse.
So you come back. How long was it before your book got published?
So on my travels, I went to Wisconsin. I just started meeting people. It's amazing when you hit a circle, you don't realize how limited your choices are. And if all you're doing to meet people is going to networking things, everybody else is trying to get something, and so people are protected. But I was free. I went to Wisconsin when I was there. My friend said, "You want to go downtown? We have to teach all day, but you want to see?" And I saw there was a conference of science fiction writers in Wisconsin that day, so I went. I paid my little money. I went to this WisCon Women in Science Fiction. And room where they had books. I started talking to this publisher about, I told her some stories about the book, like how I got the story published in Baines Bar, which is a Jim Bain's Universe online thing.
Okay.
And it got a lot of commentary. It was very well received. And I said, and it was a story that when I finished the story without the book, I sent it out to magazines, and I got one response from a magazine that I still have somewhere. They didn't even send me a whole sheet of paper. It was just like 1/16 of the paper with 2 lines typed on it. It would basically be, thank you for sending us your manuscript. Please in the future consider spell checking and grammar checking before you submit stories. And the reason is it's in the first person in the voice of a Jersey waitress. So there are several the first sentence is, I wouldn't never have left New Jersey, let alone the planet Earth, if it wasn't for my sister Alice, who you should know up front got all the genetic engineering bonus points my parents was assigned, leaving me with whatever they could come up with naturally, sperm and egg-wise. That was the first sentence of the book.
So that's...
It's grammatically incorrect on purpose.
Yeah, it's intentional.
No, I got that lovely, so I thought that was funny. And the book won an award. So somebody was wrong and somebody was right. So I'm just saying, not everybody. Just those. Yeah.
When you're submitting, you're hoping that person's interests and tastes align with what you're submitting, and that wasn't theirs, right?
You're also hoping that they read it before 10 o'clock in the morning, because they're more likely to accept things before 10 than after 10.
Is that true?
Just after lunch. Oh yeah, read the book called When. It's a time of day. If you get parole, if you go for parole, what time of day you are is more important than any other element. What time of day the judge sees you, your hearing is. That's it. So many things have to do with the time of day.
That's so interesting. The book.
It's just random. Humans are more random than we think. But we are designed to make meaning. So everything in us refuses to acknowledge randomness. And my travel got me, it's the random road. And so I'm talking to this woman, and she said, I'd like to read it. And I said, and here's what I said to her. This was a speculative fiction literary press. These ladies were like arty. My book is in a Jersey dialect. There's fart jokes and alien sex in it. It's not classy. It's Jersey. So I said, well, and I said that. It's a farce. It's got fart jokes and alien sex in it. She said, we have a sense of humor. Yeah, okay. I'll send it to you. And I was done with it, but I had to tweak it because I was writing the book. I was 20,000 words in, and I did something because I'm a pantser, which we should talk about. I'm a pantser, right by the seat of your pants, not a plotter. I don't plot. I want to be surprised, and I have lots of reasons why I'm a pantser.
Okay.
And I'm actually thinking of I'm starting a Medium blog about it, because I've been pantsing now for 6 months, steady every day. Anyway, the book was done, but it wasn't done because the last third was in screenplay format. Because what happened was I took a turn in the writing. Pantsing is very difficult because you get this great idea, and this new vista opened up for me. And when it opened up for me, I thought, I'm never going to be able to finish this story. I'm suddenly taking a turn. I'm leaving this story and starting another story. 20,000 words in. If I were writing a screenplay, I'd be done by now, because I'd written a bunch of screenplays. So I reformatted it, put it into a screenplay thing. It couldn't start it the same way, so I added some scenes to make it work as a movie, and I finished it. And I didn't go on that tangent because I knew what had to happen. So you have to know structure a little bit to be able to throw it out the window.
So
I just have structure as a general idea. I don't actually plot things out.
Okay.
Do you have? I'm done.
Do you have like points in your head that you're trying to work to? Like
really, the only one that's really visible is the next one. Down the road, they're very fuzzy.
Okay.
Kind of like if you're going through World of Warcraft or some other online game, and you've got the resolution way down. You can see the stuff right in front of you, the thing, but then beyond it, it's just those mountains are very flat, and that you don't see details out there.
Sure.
And you get closer, you say, oh, that ain't not that color, or those aren't mountains, those are trees. You weren't even sure, but you have a direction.
Okay.
So I was able to finish it. So I just had to take that last section and redo it as prose, which turned out to be very fast. It took me a week because the book was really done.
So
and I don't have a lot of description. Screenplays don't have a lot of description. It was in the first person, so I was good to go. I was gold.
how long did it end up being?
It's only 30,000 words, 35,000, or it was under 40,000, so it got published in their conversation pieces, which are they publish novellas as books.
Okay.
And that's what enabled me to get an award. It was published as a freestanding book.
Okay.
So it's a short novel, a very short novel, or a long novella.
Let's since we're talking about it, let's go ahead and dig. What's it about? What all can you tell us without giving spoilers?
A Jersey waitress who's basically at war with everyone she knows, the entire planet Earth, but especially her sister, wins this lottery to become Earth's ambassador to the planet. She calls it the unpronounceable planet of the blobs, because anybody who pronounces it just sounds like they're farting. So she doesn't try.
Okay.
And the reason they needed an ambassador is because every ambassador from Earth who's been sent there has been sent back in disgrace. And finally, the last one, a group of scientists and psychologists and philosophers, they were, as she says, sent back with a note pinned to their collective collar, asking please to not stop with the nutcases and please send a sane person. So they realized that whatever the UN is using to pick people isn't working, so they just hold a lottery.
Okay.
And she gets picked. Well, she thinks she's picked. She's actually, anyway.
Yep, sure. Stuff happens.
And so she gets sent, and she's rude to them, and they love it, because she's honest. And they're blobs, they can change, but she discovers all kinds of things, like they can change shape, texture, form, they can copy and look any food, anything, and they can make, the planet is responds, anyway, it's this utopia.
Sure, yeah. I don't want to give too much away. I want people to discover it as they read it.
So she corrupts them, or they corrupt her, or they find, anyway. Hollywood gets involved, WMDs get involved, lots of alien sex, and everybody's happy in the end, even her sister.
Okay.
But not they plunge what they think is to their death. So it's everything.
It's everything. Jam-packed in there. Where can people find it?
It's all in first person. I could probably recite to you from memory from all the book readings the first 10 pages, but I won't.
Where can people find it? Amazon, where else?
You can find it on Amazon. You can find it from the book publisher. It's an ebook and a hard copy.
Okay.
I believe the price from the publisher is cheaper. So if you go to Aqueduct Press, I think it's $2 cheaper if you go with the hard copy book. I think that the ebook is the same price with the hard copies. But you can go to Amazon, find the publisher, go to their website, and buy it from them.
Okay.
So yeah, it was fun to write.
I've got about 1 million questions, both about your book and not about your book.
So should we pick up the narrative of my life, or should we keep going?
I want to talk about the book a little bit, because most people who watch this are authors. Everyone I've interviewed so far has been a writer of some sort. How many drafts did you have to do of your book? I ask because it's different for everybody, but some people write.
I had a ton of drafts of the first story because I was trying to sell it. And when I was accepted at Baines Bar, the editor there and I went back and forth, but they were mostly just small things. This book was the easiest book I've written, but I've written a lot, so I don't really, that's why when I write in the first person, it's pretty much a 2 or 3 draft process, and then there's the editorial drafts where it's back and forth.
Sure.
And I think 4. So you're just not going to get away with fewer than 4 drafts. You're just not. You get the first draft, you get it down, and then there's things that change by the end. You got to fix that.
Right.
So the first 2 drafts are really procedural. What's happening, and you find your voice and your procedures. And then the next draft is, okay, how can I make this better? Is this really the right way? Should I move this around? That one you sort of take it up. That one's the rough one where you really struggle with the story. And you've done some of that in the second. You do, but that's just to fix everything that's broken that you broke because I wasn't looking over my shoulder. And then there's a draft of just smoothing it out because now it's got clunky bits and you smooth it out. That's what I did. But the thing is, I sold this book because I was talking to people and I was not trying to sell her. I was telling her she shouldn't take the book. Because I just didn't want to be rejected. I just don't like rejection. It just takes the heart out of me.
You
I'm
told
not going to send to people that I don't like, that I don't think they're going to get it. Hollywood taught me that. I mean, really, Hollywood is a lot um, thistle. You know thistle? It's a beautiful plant. The color of the blooms is just bright blue or bright purple. You want to just love it. And there are flies that impale themselves on it.
Okay.
So here, it pricks you all over and it scratches you. If you try to pull it out, forget about it. So Los Angeles is California thistle. And I was just scarred up. One of the reasons why New Zealand was so nice, it was the opposite of Los Angeles.
It's so crazy.
I'm tired of submitting to people who aren't going to like it. They're just not going to like it. They're not. I started a film festival. I was in LA, the Broad Humor Film Festival for comedies by women.
Okay.
I knew a lot of women who did funny things. I do comedy. And they just weren't getting into film festivals. What women were getting into film festivals was either just tragedy. My life is so bad that I overcome it. Like, or it was documentaries. That's it. That's the only film by women that were getting in. Now it's changed. So I started one for comedy. And I watched all these films for like 8 or 9 years and read all the screenplays. I watched every single one, read every single one. Women do it differently. What I tell people in the film business is that women's comedy is not built like Aristotle with a single climax and a cigarette. It's built along the female model, which means women's comedy is a way for men to enjoy the multiple orgasms women take for granted. Not one big one. You got one. I'm done. Okay. Well, there might be. Yeah. I think. Okay. There we go. And there's that was an extra bonus. Okay, I'm done. We can work at it. All right, fine. We can do. Oh, here we go. That one's kind of disappointing, but yeah, okay. It's a nice finish. Female orgasms. They don't follow the model. You never know after the first one how far or quick, how big or small the next one is coming. But usually you get enough.
So how many?
That's women's comedy.
How many books did you write before this one got published?
I wrote only 2 books. This was my first fiction book.
Okay.
I'd written plays, I'd written screenplays, and won awards for both of them. So I wrote maybe a half a dozen full-length plays, 20, 30 short plays.
And you said those got awards?
Not the short plays. They got performed, but it's hard to win awards. I think I might have gotten 1 or 2 of the short plays in festivals, right? I can't remember now. It's too long ago. I'm old.
I mean, that's still incredible.
And then I wrote this, and I got I don't know if I won a couple of awards for screenplays. I did have a collaborators I've worked with and things. So I've written a lot, but I decided to go with novels because as I wrote this story got published. I got paid for it. So I started writing more stories. And I have more control over the whole thing because the screenplay and theater, which I love, they're collaborative. And I love the collaborative process. But the collaborative process in the business of the collaborative process isn't really meant for people like me. The women who are successful in it, I give them kudos. But it's not, I could keep beating my head against the wall or I could go elsewhere. There's a book about, okay, wait, I don't know the title. This idea that if you're not successful by the time you're 30, you're not going to have a big success. Well, it turns out this guy did the big numbers on it. He did big data on it. And it turns out it's not so much that, it's the first 10 years, about 10 years in from when you start a new one. So an academic who has no success in his 20s, 30s, even 40s, who shifts to another career, has that window opens up for him again. So he says, and I didn't understand everything about it because Q is a factor that's mathematical and I couldn't quite get it. But you want to find your Q for Twitter. If you're on Twitter and you're not successful in a short window of time, you're probably not going to be. And people go, oh no, I need to be Twitter. I mean, you can go onto these groups and you get a lot of followers, but if you want to hit it big in Twitter, you got to have the Q, whatever that is, for Twitter. And I'm sorry I'm so vague about it. But you can try a different one. You might not work on Twitter. You might do Instagram. Or there might be another one that's coming along. Or try your Medium things. Find the place where your Q matches. Maybe YouTube. Don't put your energy into it and learn what you can, because that helps you and gives you expertise for the next thing. All my life I've been told, Susan, if you just stick to one thing, you could have a big success. I think that's not true, but at the time I would feel very guilty about it. Now, everything I spent time on infuses everything else I do, plus I'm happy.
How?
Young. I'm young not because I'm age, whatever we call young needs a better word.
Yes, which is back to the original conversation we had whenever you said you were 60.
Now, I was 60 when I left.
Right,
the year.
right. The age thing you brought up, like successful by 30, wasn't Stan Lee like 47 whenever he decided he was going to make superheroes? Something like that?
American comic books?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not.
I thought he was like 47. No, I'm saying like.
Big data. Yeah. It's the big data. So it's just saying that if you're not, you have to have either a devotion, like if you're not having immediate success, but you're doing something really different, okay. If you're doing something, if you're trying to write, and Nassim Taleb in The Fooled by Randomness would say, it can happen to anybody. And it's true, but you can't bet on randomness.
How long did you grind it out in Hollywood trying to make it?
I was here 15 years.
15? 1-5?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I made a bunch of. I got into film festivals. I made films. I did this. I created a film festival. I believe I got to the point where I had the respect of the people who knew me and knew my work, but I didn't have the keys. Let's use the virus as a moment. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Great.
SARS-1 comes in by the lungs, but the surface of it have those little spiky things that are like keys that only fit in your lung tissue. It's dangerous, but it only works in your lungs.
Okay.
The COVID virus, the keys are a different key. Okay, it's still a coronavirus, but they fit cells in your lungs, in your vascular system, in your testes. I'm sorry, guys.
Joy.
I just had a mild case.
Oh, joy.
They're testing people for fertility now. So.
Really? Wow.
Because there's a key there, and the coronavirus can come in and replicate. Don't get sick. Don't go to one of those parties to be sick.
Don't worry.
Unless you had all the children you want. Don't.
I don't. It's okay. I'm not going to.
So some people have the key for Hollywood. And when they come here and they tumble around, they find it. Some people have the key for the arts and they tumble around and find it. Some people have the key for only one other thing. So the thing about coronavirus is, they think one of the theories is that if you get coronavirus and you cough loud enough to open a blood vessel, just a tiny one to bleed, it can go in and get your vascular. And they're going to your body. That's what they're thinking now. What I'm saying is that for a lot of the arts, people who can do a lot of things, they need to get into the blood stream. They need, once they're like people who do a lot of things are the kind of people that can hook into the vascular system. They don't know how to get out of the lungs. They can't do it on their own. So I tried in Hollywood, but I don't have the thing that matches Hollywood. So I never could, cause the cough, the shaking that would let me get into the rest of the system. I couldn't shake it enough. I did my best. I did well enough that I don't think it's the quality of my work. But when I went into the movie business, the writing business, first book out, I got an award.
And you told them, do not take the book.
You're not going to really like.
You told them, they said, we wanted to read your book, and you said no.
Because I just didn't think I had mainstream. Anyway, they're a small independent press, but they're highbrow. This is farce. I didn't think but she anyway. That's another story. I love them.
So,
they publish more of my stories. They like me, so it's a love fest now between them, because they say it's farce, but there's another layer of meaning underneath that they get. I am like my cabaret character. She looks like a dumb blonde, but there below it is all this social commentary. It's the same thing here. Very specific audience.
Gosh, I could ask 100 more questions. So screenplays and
battery power's at 65%.
okay.
I could go get it plugged in, but we'd have to like put on music because I'm not going to walk away and have you just. I guess I could.
No, it's okay. We'll beat the battery.
More than half. We're not even halfway there.
What? So screenplays and novels are obviously different, right? Obviously, but are there skills that you developed from screenplay writing that easily help, like, transition and help your novels?
I think screenplay helps novel writers really well. I don't think the reverse is true.
Okay.
If you're a good novelist, I think it'd be really hard to write a screenplay.
Is it because of?
You need those skills. I think that you can use those skills because what screenwriting teaches you is scene structure. A lot of novelists don't know what a scene is, but a novel can go on. But a novel can have the beauty of language that a screenplay can't have, because a screenplay is a architectural drawing. And it's a map. It's not the thing. The director gets to make the thing with the cinematographer.
Right.
It's not an end product. A screenplay is not an end product. But what it is an end product of is character motivation, and to a certain degree, the relationship of character to scene and time, to the other elements. But my biggest struggle in writing a book, and why the first one was in first person, is that I struggle with description. Screenplay doesn't need it. Matter of fact, they don't want you to do that. They want you to just, let the imagination of the director know what it's going to be, and the designers. You're supposed to give them a frame, and they're supposed to be able to paint it. So, but what it teaches you is how to get what action is. Theater teaches that too. Characters have to have a motivation, and they have to have a switch. They have to have something that they want. And it sounds so simple that I know a lot of people who've studied it in film school and think they know what, but I was in graduate school in acting, and actors who study for years to figure out really how to dig into a true action or motivation of a character and let that sit under the surface, not in the words, but below, and push the surface along. It's like the outboard motor that's under the water, and all you see is the boat on top. Looks like the boat's just floating. And people write this, or else people will take the motor and put it in the air. But if you put an outboard motor up in the air, you're not going anywhere.
Not doing anything, no.
So acting teaches you how to see motivation, how to break it down into beats, and how to structure that to keep things moving forward. Watch an animation. There's one screenwriter who gave a workshop, and he described everything that happens in a scene. Like he said, Babe, look at Babe. It goes into a thing. It's uh-oh, whew, uh-oh, whew, uh-oh, whew. Screenplays, though, are more relentless. You have more time in a novel. But if you know how to like put somebody in a situation, have it pay off with something changing, and go to the next thing, and there's now another thing that's needed or wanted. And there's a conflict, because otherwise it's uninteresting.
Right. And
something that results from it changes. There's a change. So it's a constant dynamic evolution. And that's what screenplay writing and playwriting teach you. And you're done. You don't need to, if you don't want collaborative work, if you don't want to hand your baby over to someone else and let them reinterpret it for you, it's not yours anymore.
Right.
I mean, movies take the copyright from you.
Right.
You want a movie made, and you're not J.K. Rowling.
You sell it.
Copyright.
Right. You sell it.
Well, you sell it, but it's gone.
Right.
You love it because you lived with them for years. And the thing that movie people, in my opinion, don't understand is how deep structure works in a novel. So J.K. Rowling, give her an example. She kept that right. And she didn't exercise it too much. Final approval of anything that happened in the movie and the script, and final cut. So she got one of the scripts, one of the later ones, and it said that Dumbledore, they gave Dumbledore a girlfriend in his past. She said, no, can't have that. I said, why not? Just because he's gay. Nowhere in the book does it say it's
Nowhere.
finished. It doesn't have to be in the book. It doesn't have to be in the book. But you change that, and her whole the scaffolding underneath the story changes. They don't see it, and foolishly, like people who think that governing is you just change one little thing or science. You can't. You change the scaffolding, and the whole thing changes. So when you get notes about screenplays, people say, "Well, just change this to that." It's like, yeah, okay. Things that you don't see will change, and that will either make the story a lie.
And how do you do that?
Yeah.
Right.
Or that we change everything. I'm struggling with that now because I've just started a new book that I'm working on. And, I'm at the very beginning where I'm pantsing my way through.
Sure.
So I think about it enough that I think I can get started. And I start and I realize, I'm stuck. So I have to go back and work on the scaffolding. And lots of things change. And suddenly I'm messing around down here. Up here, different things are happening. And I go, okay, this is a good landscape. And I go into it and I realize, oh no, there's no way out of here. So I go back down and it's like, oh, they change again. And I have to go back. I mean, that would be a science fiction novel in itself.
Yeah. Maybe you should write that one.
What is the Ursula Guin novel where they dream and every day he goes to sleep, he's given suggestions, and she changes the world every time he dreams it?
I can't think of the name. I know the book you're talking about, but I can't think of it.
Because right now, The Left Hand of Darkness is stuck in my head, and that's not the one it is. The one that, anyway, and the world keeps changing. That's what a novelist does, by changing just a little thing at the bottom. We writers understand the butterfly and the Amazon effect. Really.
Right.
Because you don't feel it here. And so people just go back and change this little thing back there, and they don't realize that giving Dumbledore a girlfriend long before 50 years before the first book starts, changes everything at the end.
Everything. Changes everything.
But they don't know that. They don't feel it. But the person who is the program carries the whole story in them knows that. So that's part of the work of world building and writing, and why writers spend a lot of time napping on the couch.
Yeah, we're thinking. Those naps, we're thinking.
But it's actually...
It's true, we are.
And falling asleep and letting your unconscious get rid of things. And then
So...
That's the story of Orson Scott Card. He was staying with some friends. He was sleeping on the couch. And he was with friends for like months. And somebody said, what's he doing sleeping in the middle of the day? He says, oh, he's writing this chapter 2.
He did something right.
Yep. Anyway, she's dreaming.
Oh, when puppies dream, it's something else. It's the funniest thing. So cute. So you win this award. You win the award.
And that's all it was. It was a nice thing.
What?
It took away the feeling like I just can't have the imposter complex. These people didn't know me. More than one person chose. It wasn't chosen by one person. It wasn't somebody's taste. It was an award. The other books were really good too. So yeah, it reminds me not to have. Beyond that, I didn't get anything. It doesn't really affect me.
But.
Yeah, no. I gave out awards every year in a film festival.
But,
people thought it would change their lives.
No, I mean it's an award's an award, right? You're still the same person when you wake up the next day. But.
The world isn't treating you different unless you win.
Right.
Even if you win in Sundance, it depends on who you are.
But
people who won an award for best short film in Sundance and got nothing.
But what was going through your head when you won? Because you didn't expect anything, right? Like you never expect. So what were you thinking in that moment?
That's it. Every now and then I feel yay, and it's because it just tells me that how I think of myself and who I am are in alignment. And it's a real gift to sense yourself, to truly have who you think you are, to be in alignment with what the world is telling you. Because when you are too far out of alignment, you need to change or you suffer. Something needs to change. Sometimes the world is wrong. Sometimes you need to change. So the world tells writers right now about having to do all this social media stuff.
It's true.
Having to be a good business person. Nobody tells that to the Impressionists. Told that to them. They had a culture that said, of course not. When I was in France writing my very first screenplay, this was a long time ago, I was there for a month. I rented this little room. I didn't have much money, so I stayed in this hotel in the 14th arrondissement. And after 3 days, I just had to have a place to land. It was a small little 2-star hotel. It was very small. But it was still expensive. In Paris, even a tiny garret room is expensive. It did have its own bedroom, which was nice. And so after 3 days, the first 2 days, I wandered around. And I found a little place in the 19th, which is way north on the outside of town, a little bit of a dicey neighborhood, that was in my budget of something like $400 a month.
Okay.
Not much. So I said I was leaving. They said, "You don't like it here?" They knew I was a writer. I said, "Yes, but I have to write a book, and I'm here for a month, and I only have a certain amount of money." They said, "How much money do you have?" I said, $400. She said, "We'll take it. You can stay." So what did I do? I took $400 and I just gave it to them. Had they written it down, they would have had to report it.
Right.
So I had to give it to them and trust that they wouldn't show me out tomorrow. And they didn't. I stayed for the month. But I knew when I was handing that money over, okay, let's do it.
That's a scary situation.
Not really.
Well, but like you said, like in your head, you're like, oh, well, what if they kick me out tomorrow? You've got nothing.
I had the cash, and I did have an American Express card, and I could have gone to an American Express and said, "I'd like to open an overtime payment." I didn't use that. And I could have. There was an American Express office open. I think if you apply beforehand, they would have let you. Said, "I want to charge a hotel," and I had my return ticket, so I just had to take care of 30 days. And if it was really bad, I could have gone to the airlines and put it on the American Express to change it for next week and come home. But I liked my little hotel room with my little garret and my little desk and my little private bathroom, and it wasn't smelly, and the neighborhood was wonderful. Don't faire vos chevaux.
What? You have lived such an amazing life. I mean, you've just seen places. You've done things. Some people don't. Like all the things that you've done, some people just they go to work, they come home, and they watch TV. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying.
If that works for you, and you have your family and your
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. There's two things to say about that. There's two things. On the one hand, privilege. On the other hand, the luck you make. I was born in a family. I wasn't born in a refugee camp. I was born in the United States.
Yeah.
I have parents that weren't rich, but when I was younger, if I was hard up, they could give me the month's rent to tide me over. I have friends who can't do that.
Sure.
I travel the world with this space. People aren't scared of me. I can even, although it's a risky thing today, because I was raised by women who, from a long tradition, maintain the social order. The Karen problem right now is in part because of this system breaking down, not necessarily badly, or more precisely because there's racism in the system, otherwise it would be all right. So my mother grew up in New Manhattan. The streets were safe, people could leave their bikes, their skates, because all the women watched down, and if someone tried to take the wrong one, they would yell at them. I, in my life, have gone through the world, I live downtown Seattle, some guy in a business suit throws trash on the ground. I say, "Pick that up." He's shocked at me. He says, "I live here too, don't throw trash in my yard. You wouldn't want me to throw trash in your house." I say that to people. That's the Karen thing, though, when it's addressed badly and racially. Mind your own business. Well, it is my business. So I have a set of values, and I'm walking my dog in Culver City, and I see a car with license plates from the dealer, he's eating an ice pop and he throws it out the trash and it out the window. I said, that was a shitty thing to do. And he went like this. Well, I saw he had dealer plates. I walked to the dealership. I walked in and I said, okay, one of your people just did this. And then he shrugged at me. So what am I supposed to think about your dealership? Think I'm going to buy a car from you? Think I'm not going to tell everybody I know?
Of course.
They said, which was it? Who is it? You don't let them eat in the car. So rather than eat in the car and get in trouble when he came here, he littered in my street. You change your policy. They tried to be nice. They tried to have me talk to the woman, but I was talking to the whole room. And I said, no, I'm not going to point my finger at that man. I'm pointing my finger at you. It's your culture here. So that's white women. That's me, and that's white women. But there's another side to that, in that we feel entitled to that. So there's a dark side to that. So you have to be careful. That's why I write fiction. There's a dark side to it, right? Right?
Yeah.
Parenting is all part of that. But the other thing is, I have had so many friends in my life say, Susan, it only works out for you. The woman I handed the festival over to was a woman who said that to me a lot.
So when you were at the end of, when you were done with the festival, you handed her control.
Somebody, I just walked away. I walked away from the festival too. I just walked away. I still show up every now and then, but
Sure.
And the thing is that what happened was, because of me, I can say, she decided to make a film of her own. She wrote a script and decided to make her own film.
Great.
And what she discovered is, it happened for her too. Now she had a film that she wanted to ask for. She started asking for things and figuring out, and she got things because she needed them. Other people said no, but it's like when you get a no, it's it's gone off the plate. It's things you keep your eye on where you're going. It's like the Red Rover game. Did you ever play that? Where you hold your hand?
Oh yeah.
We played it in acting school. Why? Because the acting teachers it was an exercise. Try to break through. Okay, and couldn't because the guys on it were big and strong. They said, okay, don't try to break through. Just go to the wall behind you. Just go to the wall. Little me, 5'1", 2 big guys. I went right through them because I was going to the wall. I wasn't trying to break through. Going to the wall, that's where you're going. You are lucky. You can be. You also take big hits. I've taken big hits in my life. Going to the wall. And it's not what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. What doesn't kill me doesn't stop me.
Right.
And it's in the past. Bye. It's back there. And why am I going to turn around and look at it? Back there.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not ignoring you. I'm thinking. It's just
No.
everything you're saying is just so practical. People need to hear it because they get hit and they stop. They get a rejection and they stop.
Because as my friend who made the movie and now runs the festival said, it happens for you. It doesn't happen for me.
Right.
She was so upset when she said that. Tears in her eyes, rage, and I understand that because people promise me things too. I didn't promise she would be lucky. I just said you can make more things happen than you're doing. I'm lucky. Try. The worst that happens is you don't succeed. So many things that I've gotten have been when I had a job I was perfect for, an award I knew I would win, I didn't. And in desperation that very day, I sent in another thing, or I got something there. I remember taking my Artist Trust grant application. It had to be in by 5, and it was $4.50, and it was a 15-minute walk across town. And I ran across town, and I was sweating. I had this thing in my hand. I wasn't going to make it. I walked in, and they're starting to shut the door, and I handed it to them. And I got a $7,000 grant. And the only reason I did it is because I got turned down for something that I was perfect for. And that's the grant that took me to LA, and I got There's things that came out of it. It's not that everything, but I don't say everything's meant to happen. I'm saying take what you're given and go with it.
You said something that's so. You've said a lot of stuff that's great, but you said like the worst thing that happens if you try and you don't get it is you just fail, and it's like what I kind of tell people is like if you try and you get rejected, you're just in the same spot you are now. But if you try and they accept
I actually don't. I think that you have to acknowledge that you're not. You're not.
it.
Take a hit.
Sure. Yeah. No, you're gonna take a hit, but like,
You
but
are knocked back a little bit.
you are.
Is it? If you're knocked back,
But what could happen is they could accept it. So like my point is like you either go for it and you succeed, or like you're still just kind of working that same job that you were working before.
don't think you can't think about the job. You've got be John Riggins. That's a long time ago in football. The Washington no longer Redskins. John Riggins.
The Washington no longer Redskins. Did they pick a new name? Did they pick a new name?
It was fourth, third down, and 2 yards to go. He was a fullback. He was big.
Yeah, he's a fullback.
Gave it to him because he would, much of the time, he would get across the goal line. People would hit him, but his will was a kind of momentum, and his body was a kind of momentum. His body alone wasn't enough momentum because they would tackle him. But will plus momentum is a gestalt. It isn't additive. It's another thing.
Mm.
So what you need to do is fuse your will to your momentum. Not think about you're just in the same place. Not think that you're not getting hits. He was beat up, but he just fused they gave him the ball, he took the ball and his will and his mass. So you have to accumulate mass. I've done accumulating mass. I wasn't good at plot, so I used a couple of really cheesy plot books and I wrote screenplays just right to the formula. I don't like doing it that way. I like the characters. I gave myself exercises. I didn't understand what made a great performance. So while in graduate school, I went to the director of the Madison Repertory Theater, and I said, I have a Christmas break and I'm here. You're doing rehearsals for a play. Can I just come and observe? Because college students thought that the rep never hired college students. And he didn't hire them because he didn't think they were good enough. And I couldn't see it. So I went to find the thing I couldn't see because I had a month and it was something different. Novelty is important to me. So I try things. Sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes they get me a boyfriend. So, which isn't what I expected, but okay, I'll take it.
What?
Didn't get me a job. Taught me something that I can't. Ineffable. You got to believe in the ineffable. You got to take the ineffable and put it in the bank of your will. You got to try things just because you want to, and pat yourself on the back. So you take your will and you take your momentum, and you go. And when you get hit, it's like they would hit John Riggins, but two things collide: a car and a person. The car goes over the person. A car and a truck, boom, the cars bump back. So it's mass, but mass plus momentum. And your will is your momentum. And so if you think of it like an engine, just gotta practice. You want to make it stronger. Go.
What that month that you sat down looking for that thing you were missing, what was it you were missing?
If I could tell you, happy teacher in the world. But what I did is I sat there with notebook and I just wrote what I was observing and thinking and wrote with. So I had spent a month, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, learning.
Gosh.
What I thought from what I saw. That's all.
So he wasn't teaching you anything. You were just observing.
I needed to be not a problem. He allowed me to be there, which was very kind of him. Joe Hamrady. I think he's left he went to Milwaukee Rep, and now I think he's doing freelance work like at Ashland. Great man. Because he didn't know what, I just said, I want to learn this. I don't know how to learn it. I don't expect you to teach me. Can I just come and watch? He let me watch. Wow. That's it. So, and that permission was great. Nobody in my graduate school would have done that. Academics are different people. He did.
What? You still had to have learned a lot, in just observing, right?
Look, I'm a person who likes intellectualizing, but I'm telling you that there are things that you learn that aren't really, they're ineffable. That word is really great. I saw process happening. I saw love of the work. I saw people working things out. I saw imperfection. I saw caring. I saw just keep moving. Everybody, actors have a lot of emotions. Everybody kept moving. It just moved. There was it's a kind of motion. You can picture how the earth goes around the sun. It's going to go, I don't know. That's not a good analogy. It's will. I saw will in motion.
Right.
Everybody there had the same will. So they're moving the same way. Now, every rehearsal does that. So I went thinking that there was something magical that he saw, and I don't know if I would see the same thing now. I think that I'm a better judge of acting than a lot of people are, because I see something, but I couldn't tell you what it is. I've tried to teach it. I taught it at acting conservatory in Seattle for 2 years. The first class that the Northwest Actors do, they started an acting conservatory, and I took the first class. And I tried to teach that by what I would do is I would bring in actors from the Seattle rep, because this was in Seattle. I'd ask them, would you come, we'll pay, I paid them a nominal fee, and do a workshop with my students. So I paid them. And I said, pick a scene, one with a man and one with a woman, that you can just do in your sleep. Okay? I will have them learn the other part. The women learn the one man.
Okay.
And then you just come and do the scene with all of them. So the actors practice those scenes with each other, reading. And then they did them with actors that I thought were great. And there are people like, I remember watching a performance of Julius Caesar at the Rep. And it's a play, Julius Caesar's only on a little bit of time. But there was something about that actor, whose name I've forgotten, and he's also done a lot of work in Hollywood. When he walked on stage, everybody's performance was better. He carried the whole play. So when he walked on stage, whatever he was, not that they were trying to act up to him, he walked across the stage, but he carried something of the, like I say, will or presence or, I don't know what it is. Everybody got, all the scenes that he was on stage for were better than the rest of the play. I thought the rest of the play was kind of weak. So that's why it was so striking to me.
That's so interesting.
These acting students did these scenes with these actors, and all of them said the same thing. I was so good. It wasn't them. These actors did something that they rose to.
That's so interesting.
Think chakras. There's something to chakras that's very cool, right? In other words, if I'm in a low chakra, I'm in my, and you're in your crown chakra, one of two things will happen. When we're together, you will cause me to drop or I will cause you to rise. And being around a guru is supposed to raise the energy of people, right? And allow them to perceive it and possibly stay there. I don't know, I just know that about chakras. I don't know, but it sure works in acting.
That's so interesting.
Doesn't pull a good actor down. A real guru actor, one who really knows how to carry a play. Everybody rises. Chakra.
That is so interesting.
Watch it.
So mediocre actress on stage with him becomes a better. She's better.
Yeah, she has a moment. And the thing is, every actor who's trained has the possibility of transcendence. Like suddenly they go to another place. I've had it happen maybe 5 times in my life because I'm not an actor. I'm a performer, but I'm not an actor. But I've had it happen to me. It's just an amazing feeling. So it may happen that she's incandescent one day. The rest of the time she might be, mediocre and then better, but she's better every time she's with a great actor. But if she's incandescent one day, the next time she'll be thinking about being incandescent, and then she won't even be able to be on stage with the other actor. Notice if you're not really acting with the other person, but you're acting with yourself around the other person, it won't work. It won't work. You have to be intent. You have to be engaged. You have to have your will on doing the scene with the person instead of your will on being great.
Do you think that same thing happens in other professions?
Sure.
Not just art ones, but anything.
I don't know, probably. I can theorize. I'm good at that. would be totally ignorant. I would just be making it up.
Sure. It's just a question, like, I wonder if that happens other places.
I can't imagine why not.
I can't either.
Taking your will, putting it
Yeah.
and momentum and doing something. And if you're doing that thing, it'll be good. If you're doing you, it's different. I mean, you can't. If you're doing you, you're not going. You have no momentum. You have mass. You have will. But really, you're just,
Yeah. I know exactly what you're saying. I understand.
I'm making things up.
But it makes sense.
I never talked about John Riggins and Will before. See, it's new. That's the other thing. I'm not here to tell you. I mean, I have notes in case I go blank, but I haven't actually looked at them because we're having a new conversation.
Right.
I'm in it for the new conversation.
That's what's so fun about me doing this with people is we're just having a real conversation. We're having a real conversation. It's not me talking to you and you're not talking to me. Like we're having an actual conversation about things.
Things.
Right. And
So what do you think about this guy or this movie? Or we're having a talk about what it is to be human and alive. That's the only conversation we're having.
And people don't have this conversation. I mean, they do, but they don't.
I don't know how to have it.
Right.
You don't practice everything. And people are uncomfortable. And when they get uncomfortable, maybe they don't like it. I mean, there are some people who don't want to think about it, and their brains work in different ways. I don't want to actually judge them.
Sure, that's fair.
That's fair. People have there are different types of people. But for people who love the world of ideas, like I have a lot of friends who get tired of listening to me because I'm on my head. They say, I just think that my manner of discourse they're not interested in sort of playing in this field of ideas. They're interested in something else, connecting to people.
Sure.
I'm not like learning all about you and I don't know about your life and you haven't, I have a dog, but what's happening with my, even if you don't ask about my family, you're not really we're not delving into each other's emotional life, right?
Right, yeah.
People are good at that. They connect with the person feels seen and known, and we're doing a different kind of conversation. So, I mean, different kind of writer, too. I'm not that kind of writer.
What kind of writer are you?
I don't write the heartbeat. Even though there's a lot of heart in my things, it's hard for a person like me. I can't, for instance, a popular book, I can't imagine. I just was exhausted by her. I just was exhausted by about 10 pages in. I just thought, I have to stay here for how many 100 pages?
He said, I'm done.
Drama queen, come on.
So
there's other people, but people loved it.
Yeah.
They felt the book really just gave them such emotional richness to savor. So people are different. So you and I like this kind of conversation. So we're a good match for a podcast. Probably podcast people are a good match for me.
Probably.
Because we're far apart from each other. We have, we're not going to give each other a hug after we're.
No, we're not.
That's okay by me.
People are so interesting. I struggle. This conversation I can have, and I feel like I'm decent at. But the other type of person you described, that's emotion, I struggle to converse with them, and I wish I was better at it because I want to understand how they see the world. I know you can't. I'm just talking.
I keep reading people saying I will get better at asking questions and listening and repeating back to people what they said so they feel heard. I just do not. I just do things. I just bad at that.
Yeah. Well, let's transition into something.
1,000 words a day.
1,000 words a day. First.
Well, what were you going to say? See?
Your Korean translations.
Oh.
I'm going to throw those up. They look so cool.
Well, what happened was the last years of my working teaching life, I taught in a special ESL program at Santa Monica College. I had a lot of students. They came from all over the world, and I had one student who was Korean, who wanted to make her speaking English better, but her English was top-notch because she was a translator of English books into Korean for a number of publishers. Excuse me, I'm going to...
Sure.
So I don't actually start rubbing and gross. So I said, book like that. She loved it. So I said, she was leaving. I said, what would a book about this course? They'd love it. That would be great. She says, but I don't know. I said, well, talk to your publishers. So I convinced her to talk to some of the publishers. She thought about it. She asked me to do a little research. She did some research, like you would do. I didn't do it. On one of the books that were in Korean, she proposed it to what she thought was the best publisher, Munye. They accepted the proposal and wanted a sample few chapters. So I wrote the chapters up and sent it to them. They liked it. They liked it a lot. So it was called American College 101, How to Survive and Thrive on Campuses in the United States. It's about the things that mostly Asian students have to change in order to get the most out of the educational system, because it's based on a completely different model from theirs.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. What's their model?
Well, their model is, if you don't understand, listen harder. Don't ask questions.
Okay. That's different.
The teacher is teaching you, and it's your failure as a student not to grasp what they're trying to tell you. If you're working on a project, you're given homework, you can do it with each other. So you don't have to do it by your math homework. You don't have to do it by yourself. You do it with each other. That's okay. For instance, right? If you're called out in class, it's okay to give. They give a one-word answer. And more importantly, if I tell them, okay, we just read the book Tom Sawyer. I want you to think of the story in terms of like 10 steps. If you're crossing a river, and the river is, you want to get to the other side, the beginning of Tom Sawyer and the end, what 10 things would you do? I put them in groups, they wouldn't have any idea what I was talking about. They didn't have any idea what I was talking about. Or if I'd ask a question on a test, I've had students come up and say, I don't understand this question. We read Flowers for Algernon, which is about a young man who has a severely low IQ of 70, who's given an experimental treatment, and you've seen it, Flowers for Algernon, Charlie. He gets to be a genius, and then it's only temporary. He has to go back to being a person with low IQ, and all that goes with it. And then there was the Book of Mice and Men, where there's also a severely retarded man.
That one I'm familiar with.
Very differently. So both of them are set in a world, and so I said, how did the world treat these people differently? Or what was different in the world that made the endings of these books differently? Whatever. How did the world was a factor in what happened to these? They were like, I have no idea. Well, the Depression in the United States, when people were hungry and workers were, living in bunkhouses, it was a very harsh and cruel world. People were if somebody lost their hand, they wouldn't have work anymore. They would be just tossed out on the street. It was a very cruel world. But in Flowers for Algernon in the 70s, people were kind. They were trying to help people with mental disabilities. So there was a big difference, right? Although some people were cruel, even the cruel people were kind to Charlie in their own way, in their own adequate way. They cared about him. They cared for him, even if they also played jokes and tricks on him. So they couldn't come up with anything. They said that this question makes no sense. I couldn't ask them to do interpretive questions comparing two books if we didn't talk about it in class. If they talked about it in class, they'd ask. But if I did a character analysis of Tom Sawyer and showed them how to do a character analysis of him, I'd say, okay, now do one of Huck Finn, or do one of Huckleberry, or do one of Aunt Polly. They'd say, but we didn't talk about it. So they wouldn't know how to do it. They didn't understand I was teaching them a method. They thought I was teaching them information.
It's almost sad. But there's
some great things that come out of it.
No, there is.
Yeah, it's just that if they want to do well they've got to be able to do certain things.
Yes. And it's just sad because you asked them a question, they said, we don't know because you didn't talk about it. They thought it was an unfair question. They thought it was unfair. I mean, they weren't just, they thought I was unfair to ask that question. And they were indignant. I understand it. So it's just really, but I don't want to sort of generalize about a whole population. No, of course. Great students. So did you change your method to be more informative, or did you try and teach them to understand method?
explained, and I did some kind look, and then it depended on the student and it depended on the circumstances. For instance, some students I would really push. Sometimes with the group I push, I would say, does everyone understand the homework assignment? Are there any questions? No questions? Okay, you may go. And they'd all come up to me after the class and ask questions about the homework. I said, no, I'm not answering any questions about the homework. You ask in class. They would get mad at me, but no. But on the other hand, I had a student from Japan who was, whether he was LGBTQ or not, he gave off the cliche of that vibe, okay?
Okay.
He was very unusual looking, and I don't like speaking of. I never asked him, but in the beginning, he could not speak in front of other people. You'd ask him a question, he would go. He would never actually utter a sound, and I didn't push him. I said, well, good that you tried. And I asked someone else. Students didn't always like that I gave him a break. By the end of the year, he was able to answer. He wasn't, I respected him. I gave him space. I kept an eye out and the other male teacher, I had co-teaching a male teacher who gave him a lot of positive feedback as well and reassurance. And I just felt that he'd been really scarred by some kind of social ostracization, because he didn't seem like he was incapable. He seemed like he wanted to, and then he didn't pass. So that was my call and my co-teacher's call. But it did have a good result, so it's not always the same. I didn't push him. It would have been cruel. So I don't know.
That's so interesting.
And I don't know. I'm not saying. But from what I know of his culture, had he had those stereotypical qualities, whatever his identity was, he would have been horribly bullied. The woman who translated my book, her son, she moved here because her son was on the spectrum and was horribly bullied in school, and the teachers didn't care. She thought they didn't care. She brought him here, where he thrived.
Wow.
It was difficult. He was able to thrive.
Wow.
So she was determined to stay in the United States as a student until now he's in college. In Santa Monica College, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
So I understood some of those things. So what I'm saying is, but there are some really great things about those.
There is.
Talking about the issues that I had, because my book was about how you come here and learn here. I didn't say we're better. I'm saying if you're here, here's how to get the most of it.
So she translates your books.
Yeah. And then they published them. And they want a second one, so I did a second one. They want a third, but it's been held up in this time. A lot of books have been held up right now, so.
That's so interesting. That entire story is interesting.
Okay. I don't know, it's just.
I think it's interesting. I think other people think it's interesting too.
It's just.
And I just think anyone who's learning about other cultures, it's just so important, especially when we're in a country where we experience a lot of cultures.
We don't experience a lot of different culture.
Well.
I had to hold myself back after I learned in my first year that there's a certain kind of laughter from some of my Asian students that was embarrassment. It wasn't disrespect. No, this is not something else, wasn't disrespect. I told a story when I had Europeans and Asians in the class. I said, I tried to teach them about cultural understanding. So I had read a story about soldiers in Okinawa who, they were driving, and one soldier told a story about how he almost ran over a woman and her two children. And the woman went, they laughed. And the soldier felt, they don't care about life. I could have run them over. What do they know? He was just angry at them. And every Asian student in the class went, no. They were embarrassed. And I said, okay, but that goes two ways. When you want to talk about, like
Right.
almost all of my Asian students called all of the Hispanic students Mexicans. Many of the Hispanic students called all the Asian students Japanese. I mean, they called them the Japanese, but they weren't. They're very, so,
Right.
and there were behavior differences among them. And so you have to get to the point where you're like, oh, so I knew that not asking questions was a behavior difference, and culturally ingrained was a taboo. It's hard to break a taboo. Even if you know it's permitted, it's hard to break it. So I would have patience, but push.
What a tough balance.
Well, when I was in graduate school, we did an experiment with the students, classes, where they did a thing about happenings, theater that's performed, is theater. And what they would have other TAs do is walk in the classroom and yell at the TA who was teaching it.
Okay.
And then storm out, have a fight, storm out, and then ask them what they, but it has a purpose behind it. Whatever. They would ask them what had happened. So I was going to do this for one of my co-teachers. I actually didn't do it with my class because I thought it was a little bit of a, later, once I'd done it once, I thought it was a little bit of manipulative. But anyway, so I'm standing out her door and she's waiting for me. And I have to burst into her classroom and yell at her. I couldn't. She's waiting for me. I'm standing in the hall.
She's literally
classroom.
Literally waiting for her.
I did, but she was like, "Where were you?" I was like, "Well, it's hard." So even when I had permission, I knew I was being waited for. I had trouble because I didn't care about the student's judgment of you. There was no judgment, no problem, nothing. Why couldn't I open that door? Why?
Because the cultural norm is you don't burst into a classroom and yell at someone.
What did I do about that? I was an actor.
Yeah, but that's not.
And I had permission. She was waiting for me.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not who you are. It's not, right? Like, it's not. That's not how you were taught to be.
It's really powerful. The same thing happened when I had to do a play where I had to slap someone, and it was a tight little theater, so I actually had to slap him. Playing his mother, he was a college-age student just like me. I had to slap his face.
Like, actually hit him.
You can't hurt me. I said, I can't slap your face. So we worked, and finally I slapped his face, and I burst into tears. Burst. Like the cliche. I slapped his face, and like the cartoon of tears springing out of your eyes and spraying all over everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Violence, though. So there's a big, interesting how strong that taboo is. And interesting that some people can break it easily.
That's very interesting.
I still feel as though what happened was I slapped his face, and I still sort of feel the tears going, it didn't happen that way.
How's your battery life?
So that's acting, but acting teaches you a lot about, acting is tough, but that's graduate school. So I wrote the book. I have these other books. Those books, every time I did, like those books, the first book I read, I'd never written a long, so I'd written articles, but I'd never written a long nonfiction book. So I decided, how would I do that? And I thought about outlining, but I don't like outlining. Because if I do the outlining really well, I'm done. I have no interest. I like discovering as I write. It's just a chore to write what my outline says, because I already know it.
That's the exact same thing George R.R. Martin said about outlining. Is that he wrote the outline and then he wrote the book.
Yeah. Why write the book? I'm done. My imagination isn't interested anymore. But I needed something. So what I did was, that's why I called it American College 101. I just said I'm going to do 101 topics. I named all the topics. I've been teaching for years. I knew what they had to be and divided them into categories. And then every day I wrote one topic. And when I was done, I had a book.
In 101 days.
Yeah,
Ish.
pretty much. I had a draft in 101 days.
3.5 months. You got a book.
So I've been doing doing those things to make it doable for me. And that's what I would say to anybody who says, oh my God, I'm a writer, but I can't make myself do it. Yeah, if I were really X, I'd no. What you need to do is find what you can do and then do it for a set period of time. I think that's why people like National Novel Writing Month. But I think 1,500 words, more or less, is too much for someone who isn't writing every day. It's too much for me to do every day. Because, well, and you have to, my rules, I have like 5 rules that I wrote down somewhere. I'm going to post on my Medium blog, or maybe
Sure.
send it in somewhere, for daily writing. Pick a word count you can do every day. Pick a word count. If you wake up like I did the other night and think, oh shit, I didn't finish them. I didn't finish my page. Or you can get up. Or one time I went to bed and I hadn't done my pages, and I was about to sleep. I thought, oh no, and I had to get up and do them before I went to sleep. I was tired. It has to be a word count that you can do in that time. And for a lot of people, that's not going to be 1,000 words. For me, that's 1,000 words.
Okay.
First draft. Rule 2, no going back. Or if you go back, only new words on the, it has to be 1,000 words on the project you're doing. It doesn't count if I write an email to you. It doesn't count if I write about something else. I pick a project, 1,000 words every day. I can drop the project. I have a story I started, I wrote on it in 4 days, and I thought, I'm not into this. I put it in, not threw it away, but put it in, saved it, put it in a folder, and started something else. I can write 1,000 words world building. I can do a character study. It's on the book. It doesn't have to be the actual content. It's 1,000 words for my project every day. Whatever project that I've decided on. If I decide I need to fix something and go back, I can do that, but it has to be 1,000 new words that I fix. Otherwise, I can noodle, I can add things. You can use tracking to know what words are cut out, so you can still find your new words that are a different color. Add them up. 1,000 new words. So if you can edit, but only if you go back. Rule number 3. Actually, it should be rule number 2. I'm sorry. That was rule number 3. The next rule is stop at 1,000 words, or maybe 100 too more.
Interesting.
But stop within 10%, and you must stop. Must.
That's got to be the hardest one.
Because you'll drain the well. You're on a roll. You go, and you might even the next day still write your thing, but then you'll not let it go. You won't be able to do it every single day. You won't. I've been arguing with this writer who lives nearby, and she says, no, I have to follow it. And this just last week, she said, maybe you're right about this. Because I write, I feel really excited, and then suddenly I don't write for a week or 2. I said, yeah, because when you drain the well and the ground gets hard, you have to let water seep in before you've got a well to drop in. So if you find that you're finishing so fast, you have 500 words, good, make it 750. Change your count. And then stop there. But don't add more than, 20%. Because you don't want to drain, you want to be able to do it every single day, because there's a benefit of that, but you don't realize until you get there. So 1,000 words,
Stop.
Count only new words, and I think maybe it's only this project. So these are the 4 words rules. Anything else doesn't count. And then the 5th rule is stop. It's the same rule twice. Stop.
Stop at the word count.
So you have to pick one you can do it every day. Stop when you're done. If you edit, you have to only count new words. Stop.
Is stopping the hardest one? Is that why you mentioned it twice?
Here's what I've discovered. Like one day, this last bit, I was so taken with this thing I saw opening up and clear, and I just kept writing. Remember I told you unpronounceable? I got this idea that was taking me. I stopped after like 1,500, nearly 2,000 words. So I was almost double. And it wasn't that hard. I wouldn't feel exhausted. But what happens is the moment grabs you. And stopping also keeps you rooted in the plan. Even if you only see the next goal, it's going to change. If the thing you thought of is still eating at you when you sit down the next day, then you sit down and you write how the plan is changing. You write 1,000 words, not of the book, taking your detour to the road that has a bridge that's down and you end up in the ditch. But you describe what's happening. You can do those 1,000 words the next day. Don't drive into a ditch. Stop. Let it sit.
That's interesting.
I went astray, and because I was at 1,000 words, because I know that I shouldn't go too far, because I had to do it for every day for the year. This was my year's resolution. I've done it twice on the calendar. It just gives me a nice thing. But I'm hoping I don't stop at the end of the year. If I find I can't edit the books I've written, at some point, I'm giving them at least 6 months to sit. So in a few months, I want to start revisiting one of the books that I finished. I've written 1,000 words for going on 7 months now. A day.
Gosh.
A lot of words. Not all of them are in the books. Some of them are world building. Some of them
it's still a lot of words.
Yeah. It's easy. And the great thing is that 1,000 words for me is enough that I discover something. I go, oh, that's cool. That fits. And what enables me to do by going this slowly, rather than thinking I have to get to the other benefits, is you're not worried about getting to the end of the book. It changes your whole relationship to the book. Because you'll get there, because 1,000 words a day, no book is 365,000 words. It's just
nope, I haven't read it.
Yeah. You're just done with it. Or it's 3 or 4 books, or it's, Harry Potter, but that's okay too. But, there's no, because if I get done with it, you know what happens? I got to start another one. There went over the mountain, and the way he sees another mountain. I mean, it's just an endless thing. So there's no incentive to finish now, to get it done, except when you're really close to the end. And even then, you just hold it back. Because when you finish, the next day after you finish, you got to start.
Right.
You're going to leave this world. So the horses are nicely in harness that are pulling you forward. So that's one, is that you're in harness. But then what happens is the whole book stays with you as you go. So like I said, so that suddenly a little thing, you just, as you're going along, you're writing a little trait that you give someone. And you give them this trait, and then you get later and you think, oh, that trait could be for this. And it actually becomes a little MacGuffin almost, a little signal, or it becomes another, like one of those things that when you're reading, you go, oh, yeah, you just see the connection.
Right.
That's only possible if you're not going too fast. It's not going too fast. And every day I'm putting water in the well. So for instance, I read this great, I read an article. That was an article about some person who was sick all their lives. I mean, nothing to do with them. And then doctors said she had a weird birthmark that went down the middle of her body. And then what was discovered finally, but she had just terrible autoimmune things, constantly getting worse. It turned out that when they did genetic testing, the genes on both, the genetic material, she had 2 different genetic code signatures. She had absorbed twin at birth. This happens in the small, when the twins and one of the twins dies, the other fetus absorbs the cells. There are people whose own children do not have their, quote, genetic material because it's taken from, so there's a big problem with this, okay? Different parts of your body come from two different eggs implanted. So there's another person, she's 2 people genetically.
She's 2 people.
I'm trying to figure out how to resolve the problem with my character. Because the character I was writing in the second book I did this year, I liked him, he was so nice, but I was wondering how I was going to turn him into the kind of sort of raging, focused defender, fighter, because he was a really sweet boy and sweet man. And I thought about what hell I would have to put him through. And And I really believe hell would change someone's essential character. Then I read this, and that afternoon I thought, and I've been struggling with this for weeks. That afternoon I thought, oh, this is a world with magic.
Yeah.
His is in him. So the thing that I was sending him toward, where he was going to have to almost die, he dies. He dies breaking a death spell to save someone else, but his body isn't destroyed, and his twin wakes up.
That's so interesting.
Halfway point.
That's so interesting.
End of the first book. That's where I ended it, thinking it was a series, but now I've decided since then, because I let it sit, is that it's actually going to be a much longer book, because it's only about 80,000 words. I think I can get it done in 120. And that's going to be the whole book. He's done something that you're not supposed to be able to do magically. What you can, but usually humans can't do it. The magical beings can. He's gone through something called the dreaming, but he's not just gone through it to a different place. He's learned he can take his body there and someone else, which is very rare, but the last time he did it, it killed him, almost killed him, but he was saved because of this other, this creature who's thinking him, but that safety net isn't there now. So he saves this shaman person and goes into the dreaming to take him someplace safe, thinking he's going to be dead on the other side, gives him instructions, but he doesn't know he's also taken him back in time. 3 years. But anyway, that's because he's thinking about the safe place, and 3 years ago was safer. So they come there, he's dead, but his twin wakes up in him. And so he's going to get training from the shaman, but he's also got 3 years to get strong enough to defeat the man that he saved the shaman from. And he's going to walk into the room where he just teleported away in the same clothes and take up where he left off. But he's not the same person, and he's no longer prisoner of the same spell. Anyway, that's the sort of thing that came out of reading that article and going at a slow pace. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
Down there, but and I could have done it some other way. But I was putting stuff in the well. I spent only a little time draining the well, and I read all kinds of articles. Right now, I'm watching a lot of videos about the Sumerians and the Sea Peoples, a lot of older cultures, and Gilgamesh, not Gilgamesh. Sorry. Gilgamesh, I'm interested with Gilgamesh's another thing. Cyrus of Persia.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know how they're gonna. I'm not setting something in Persia. I'm setting it in some. But I'm going to get something. I've already gotten a little bit from the
Sure.
Just flavor things that I'm tossing in. But I also got something today from Biomold, which is a company that makes bricks by taking sand like coral does and infusing it with the bacteria that turns it as hard as bricks. Takes 3 days. No heat. And I thought, because I was trying to figure out how to make these people make seashell-shaped houses out of coral.
Okay.
But they have magic. Take the sand and infuse it with this living creature and make coral on land and build these houses that look like conch shells.
Wow.
Side the shape from the
Sure,
top.
yeah.
Or Russian dome, but with a swirl in it. And chambers.
So you're constantly reading and learning stuff to keep your well fill.
I'm reading it really. I'm taking the random road. I read Nassim Taleb and I took him to heart. Fooled by randomness. I go the random road. So I don't edit what I watch. I just look for what catches my eye. And YouTube suggests things to me, and sometimes I get way too many chair turns on The Voice. Okay, it's like like anything else about the joys, but I get a real happy hit when somebody gets the chair turn. I just feel like you tried or you succeeded. It's like watching pretty little animals. It's totally mindless. I often don't even know the song or like the song, so I'll just go halfway through the song, just listen to the end and watch the chair turn. That's all I'm in it for. I'm in it for the moment of the chair turn.
Sure.
Nice things to do. Makes me feel good. But I don't want to watch the mold.
Sure.
Or Or I'll watch, like I just did some things with the story of Gilgamesh. I'm done with Gilgamesh. It's still suggesting Gilgamesh to me. Okay, fine. You know, that sort of thing. But I like that, and I let YouTube's algorithm suggest things to me that I wouldn't normally watch. I watch them. I read articles, anything that catches my eye, I'll watch it. That's part of my job.
Yeah.
Billy Collins said, you know what a poet's job is? It says, my job is to sit and look out the window. That's my job.
Well, keep doing it.
What happens if he sits and looks out?
Right. Well, keep doing it. Obviously, keep doing it. We are at an hour 40.
Long enough for a YouTube video, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's long enough for a YouTube video. It's been an absolute pleasure. I feel like we could talk all night.
I talk with the topic. You know, I could talk about the book that I'm working on. But not today.
No.
I'm tired and thirsty.
You didn't bring water.
I'm parched.
Look
at that angel back there. You see her? You can't see her.
Oh, yeah, you can see her.
There she is.
Sweet dog.
So she's gonna get lots of praise for being good while I talk.
She's been real good. Let's wrap it up. Why don't you end it with your 5 writing tips again?
But 1,000 words a day. So my thing is, we started this because I was going to talk about pantsing a novel. We actually didn't.
Yeah, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. Next time. Yeah.
Pick a word count that you can do. Sit down for as long as you think you know you have that you can absolutely do any day. If it's 15 minutes, do that. And just write as many words in the computer or longhand, however you're going to do it, as you can in that time, and then count them. That's it. That's what you get. You don't get any more because you're not sure 100% that if you've lied down in bed and you've turned out the light and you're tired, you can make yourself get up and do it. 2, at 1,000 words or 500 words, whatever your word count is, stop. You may not go further. Not more than 10% further. I know it'll be hard sometimes. You're going to be on a roll. That's you know, what is it Freud called the death wish? That's your death wish, right? It's desire to lose yourself in the story, but what's going to happen is you're going to lose your will. So control your stop. If you find that it's too easy after a week, up it 10%, 15, 20%. Give yourself a new word count. That's good. All right. 3, editing only counts for new words. You can edit, not advisable, but editing, if you're going to go back, you have to add words. And 4, it has to be on your project. Now, it doesn't have to be the actual book. It can be world building. It can be character building. But you have to pick your project and stay with it. All other writing, which you probably do a lot of, doesn't count. And 5, stop at your word count. I say it twice because actually, aside from picking the word count, which is whatever, it's the rule that's going to be the hardest to keep. And do it for, pick a date that you can really have done it by. I won't say do it for a month. A month is nothing, and you can exhaust yourself. You can do National Novel Writing Month, 1,500 words a day for a month, and be, whew. But I'm suggesting you want to have a writer's life. So don't make it for your life. All my projects have been for 1 year. And at the end, I either say go or stop. Drawing the dogs, I stopped after a year. The other miniatures, no. This writing, right now, after I'm 7.5 months in, I'm almost to the end of the 7th month, so it's almost 8 months in, I could do this every day for the rest of my life. I found a good formula for me. I could get a migraine. I did get a migraine recently. I did it anyway. In Mexico, I had the art that I was doing every day. I got terrible food poisoning on the floor of the bathroom.
Wow.
Really important that you do it every day. And it's really important that you stop. Beyond that, those are just advice pieces. It changes who you are.
Yeah.
It changes what writing is possible. At least it did to me. maybe it would be different for you. I'd like to know, you know. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, close kind of down. I saw your eyes closing earlier. I thought,
No.
okay, I'm gonna.
No. Everyone out there should. I hope people listening try your method, because it could work for them. It could work very well for them.
250 words a day is
Easy.
doable.
It's half a page.
It's a page, and it's Flash. If you're worried about submitting things, you did 250 words a day. Something there you can just go join one of those email groups and just send it out as flash fiction all over the place. You just worked on it today. You polished it a little bit. You're doing 250. You have 365 versions. You can start sending it out if you're worried about rejections. In one day. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. What have you got to lose?
Practice your will. Writing every day is practicing your will, momentum, and your math. But the practice, your mass, and is affected by what you learn, and your will is protected by how much you just do. And if you have will and mass, you can barrel through anything. The wall, not the locked arms.
The wall, not the locked arms.
Red Rover. That person over.
Well, Susan, thanks so much for being here. You've been wonderful.
Thank you.
I'll have links to all your stuff, guys. You know the drill. Got links to all our stuff below. Check it out. Yeah, thanks for being here. I guess we'll leave it at that with Red Rover. Send that person over. We'll see you guys next time.